So I'm Councillor Bob McCallum, and along with Joe Gray, our Town Clerk, we are organising Westgate and Bloom.
That's you?
Yeah, Joe.
Oh, Jill. Sorry, I thought
Joe.
you said Joe.
Jill. Sorry, it's a Scottish accent. If you need me to slow down and translate, just say, because when I get serious, I get very Scottish, and it's a bad thing. On the important things, fire exit is the way that you came in. There is a toilet straight out to the right. Go whenever you want, don't ask permission, don't put your hands up, just go. Apart from Peter.
Yeah.
So I thought the easiest thing to do to start as a jumping off point, everybody should have a little brown packet. So in this brown packet is a few things, including a free pen, which you can take away with you. We will not take them back from you. Some of these things are a jumping off point. We're going to talk about Jill and I's master plan for what we think Westgate and Bloom could be over the next 3 years. There's a little questionnaire that we would like you to fill in if you can. Don't feel that you need to put your name on it, so it can be completely anonymous. Just don't put any swear words in it, and I'll get offended. You've got a piece of paper for making notes. Very prepared. And then we wouldn't be good councillors if we didn't try to tag you on another initiatives. So there's two that we're really focused on at the moment. Both of them are effectively life-saving. So the defibrillator training, which most of the councillors did, is really easy, really simple way to save people's lives, and doesn't take long at all. And I have to say, of all training that I've done in my whole career, this was the most fun that I ever had on a training session. And Denise, you were there. It was fun. Did you enjoy it?
I was there mostly. I took the photograph and...
So if you can sign up for the training, we're doing training sessions in February, so please do sign up because it takes minutes to save someone's lives, and once you've learned this, it will stick with you forever. And then the other one is our Speed Watch campaign. So myself and Councillor Comfort did our first session on Sunday, and it is amazing the speeds that people travel at in and around the town. And the difference that we can make by doing the Speed Watch campaign is absolutely huge, because every single person that is actually noted for speeding is actually followed up with by the police. And if it's over in a 30 mile per hour zone, if it's over 50, they're automatically prosecuted. So this initiative actually saves lives as well.
So what does this entail of the volunteers, the people that are doing it?
Matthew? Does this council stop for anybody who doesn't know Matthew?
So basically with the speed watch, it just entails merely just like a few hours.
And is this where people...
no, so basically what it is...
Stand by the side of the road and kick off?
No sort of speed guns. It's basically, we'll have a board which determines the speeds, and we just write down the number plates, the make, registration of the vehicle, we just note the speeds that they do. I mean, essentially, it's more to make people aware of their speed. We're not there to catch people out, so we do follow some very strict guidelines so people are fully aware when they're coming along the road that they see us, we're in high vis. But it's basically predominantly any sort of residential roads that cars are coming from. So, as it's been standing so far, some of these speed watch initiatives that we initially started in September last year, it's sort of the ball started to roll now, and we're finding a lot of momentum, and anyone who would like to come forward can do. So yeah, details will be at the bottom here, and if you do need any sort of help or assistance in terms of going online and doing the online sort of application process, we're all here to help.
And I do have to say it's actually quite enjoyable because it's kind of social as well, but actually you can see the difference that you're making, and so you watch people coming down the road and then realising and slowing down, and then you can see them think twice the next time. So I was surprised at how fun it was.
And do you do it for a couple of hours?
Yes, I mean, just to come back on this, I mean, we have found, even from the actual road users themselves, a very positive response from a lot of the actual motorists themselves. They've actually given the thumbs up and really pleased on what we've done. So yeah, I mean, basically, if you are interested, it will just be a case of registering yourself online, doing a very simple sort of online sign up. You watch a few videos, you answer some very common sense questions, and then you'll sit with a practical training with possibly ourselves, such as Jill Gray, our town clerk, and then some of these speedwatch organisers. So it's not like you're thrown in the deep end, and you always be with someone. And it is literally just a few hours a month. What we're looking to do, we basically are trying to get a speed watch on a fortnightly basis, but the more people who join, the safer our roads and the more frequent we can do this. So by all means, if you'd like to speak to it, either of us at the end of the session, we'll discuss further.
Also, it's very helpful. It makes waiting in traffic jams quite interesting if you're not too hot on your Alpha Bravo Delta for repeating the number plate name, number plate letters and numbers, and for practicing the model and make of cars, because you're sat there in a traffic jam normally, aren't you? And you're like, oh, come on. So you can just practice as the cars come past doing your Alpha.
It is amazing how it activates your brain, because after that session on Sunday, my brain just kept going afterwards, and you kind of feel awake and alive. When we got together, we were all going Sunday, coffee, bed, and actually afterwards we were like, oh, actually this is nice, it's awake, and we were standing in the sun, and it was really good and healthy. So it is something that's worked hard.
So the sun's guaranteed, is it?
We don't stand in the snow. Oh, I don't. And I don't do puddles. So, so I thought the easiest thing to do to start the night, just basically to get people thinking, myself and Jill worked on putting together this plan. So I thought I'd take you through it quickly and just give you a flavour of what we kind of think are the projects that we could do as a big part of improving the town. And then I'll hand over to Peter, who is from South and South Eastern Bloom, and he can tell us more about the competition, how it works, etc. And he's just told me some exciting news about in your neighbourhood entries. So I'll hand over to him. Ask questions. So no question is a silly question. Ask questions whenever you want to ask a question. Don't feel you have to wait till the end. So just ask. And we have an open and transparent policy, so you'll always get an open and honest answer. So the master plan that we put together, nothing is set in stone, so everything's up for discussion, but this is the kind of stuff that we thought that we could do as a lasting thing for the town, so something that future generations can benefit from after all of us have gone. So it's all self-explanatory. I'll jump to the projects because they're probably the most interesting thing. We've started with the railway station. We've got some news that will come out next month about the railway station. I know it's not about more train stopping, but it will involve a transformation. And so the railway station, we've kind of come up with the idea of marrying nature with the technology. So we've put in an application to Grow Wild, and Grow Wild are our charity that fund bringing back nature to environments. So the idea is that we would turn the railway station into a nature reserve, so bringing back wildflowers, traditional flowers, encourage the repopulation of wildlife, so things like bees, butterflies, hedgehogs, and birds that have kind of disappeared from our area. And we thought it would be a nice space to welcome people into town. As well as that, under the Grow Wild is an education element, so all of the flowers, the animals, etc. are signposted, so schools and children, visitors can actually go and look and basically go, what is that? And Grow Wild also given a certain amount of seats to be given away to residents. So if you turn up at the train station as a tourist, and you really like what you see, you can pick up some free packets of seeds and take it away with you. So it's quite a nice interactive project.
The area at the far end of the, where the pedestrian walkway.
Both. So we're going to do the whole station. So there is a project that's going to revitalise the station completely.
I can't past the loos.
Yeah, so the whole length from the bridge that goes over the road right down to the other footbridge. I can't say too much about it at the moment because we're waiting on the official confirmations, but the whole station will get transformed. As part of that, they're going to basically take all the green areas and make raised beds for us. So it means that for more elderly people, they're easier to tend. They're also going to put additional planters and hanging baskets. So the station, as being the first place that people come into, will be amazing for people coming into the town because it will give people the real perspective of what our town is about. And doing something that's about nature and wildlife is actually quite a nice thing to do. And to bring it back into an area that is quite polluted, I think will be quite good.
And
So
that's being done by the railway?
So the railway is going to build the planters for us, put the new planter cases in, the hanging baskets, and do the other work. Our responsibility as part of the project will be to plant it up. And if Grow Wild come through with the funding, that will already be funded to do. So they'll give us the money and the plants, and we just get on and do it, which is actually really good. So then the memorial gardens, so obviously we have 2 memorial gardens now. We obviously have the memorial gardens at the Sea Road, the traditional ones, and we also have the new memorial up at Lavington Road. So the original memorial gardens has actually become quite run down and quite neglected, and obviously there's the big anniversary next year, but I'm very much about celebrating the sacrifice that people have made in their lives all year round. So Jill and I have been talking about how we extend that memorial garden space and make it more reflective. So adding in more seating, putting in some trees for privacy, putting in more planting, etc., and making it a more reflective space, and then matching it up at Lavington Road as well. And again, I've already applied for some funding to try and get some money to put towards redoing both the memorial gardens, and the thing that we will be looking for is the donations for benches to go within the space. But I think that because of the heritage of the town, the memorial gardens are something that is very important to us as a town.
Just on the one at Sea Road, there's practical issues with that every year. I think that personally, I weeded it last year because it wasn't getting weeded. The practical issues there is you can't get everyone into it. So really, I think that personally, I think it would be better if it was more like a sunken garden with bedding around the outside and maybe poppies and sort of cornflowers.
And we also had an idea that we talked about. So obviously, we all know the number of fallen soldiers from the town originally. So we actually thought about taking the middle banks on either side of the memorial garden and creating individual plaques for each member, each family member, and building them into the grass.
Yeah.
And then effectively taking the memorial garden long ways.
Yeah.
Which basically means in any events, etc., people can basically congregate in the whole space, but also for the individual families that are still in the town, then they actually have an individual plaque that they can visit, put poppies on, flowers, and wreaths as well.
Yeah, because the way it's planted at the moment, it's just it's bad. It's badly organised.
Yeah.
If you put their regimental cap badges on the plaque as well, that makes it even better.
That's actually I like that.
Is the beacon that was used for the centenary, is that available to go in there? Because it was a beautiful piece of ironwork.
It's the thing is, it's gas. I'm sort of a custodian of it at the moment. The beacon. I'm talking about the beacon. The beacon. It looks very good at night. When you look at it in the day, it is quite flimsy, and it's gas operated.
Right.
So I think if you wanted to do something like that, I think you would be better off getting a metalsmith or someone to build you a replica beacon, probably out of some sort of much stronger metal.
Right.
That is quite flimsy. If you wanted something impressive, you probably want something specially built or commissioned.
Just out of interest, where was it built?
It's just it's a production thing.
Yeah,
it's just
China?
possibly.
That's right.
Possibly.
Has it got made in?
Have a look for it.
I've not looked at it, but it is, seriously, it is, the metalwork on the outside of it is
That's
riveted
just
on.
Taiwan or China then,
It's
perhaps.
riveted on and it's really quite flimsy. So if you wanted to put something there, you would probably need
No, I
permission
just
something.
thought
It
you
would
would
not,
love
oh,
it,
really,
yeah.
it would be good.
Have we
do
got
think
any
having
local
parents
metal
a nice idea,
workers?
so
Yeah.
Have we?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be lovely to have?
So we could do that. We
bespoke
could have our own bespoke beacon, permanent.
So-
There probably will be planning permission because the whole of that area is conservation area. Everything side of this side of the road is conservation area, so there probably would be a planning issue, but I don't think the council would turn it down.
No, I don't think so, but we can look into that.
Well, it
But I
would be
think
very
having a
good for the
permanent would be a
profile
nice
thing.
It
idea.
would look really good. If you had a beacon at one end of it.
Because there are a lot of areas that have kept their beacons and they look great.
Yes. Especially with the plaque on hanging off them. You talk about the traditional brazier baskets up
Well, I
on the
mean, not
pole.
necessarily because that's
Yeah.
not what we had that night,
No.
but
Yeah,
just something
yeah,
there would be
yeah.
quite nice.
Wouldn't it be lovely to have something made by a local
Yeah,
craftsman?
I've made a note of that because I think that's a nice idea. So then Sea Road in general. So Sea Road to me is kind of like our Miami Drive, and it's kind of the first impression that people get when they go to the seafront. And Sea Road has become very run down. And when you look at any of the heritage photos from the Heritage Centre and from the Don Crouch or anything you find online, you can actually see that this was traditionally nice little areas for sitting out of the wind, sitting having picnics and getting away from the sand, etc. So the idea is to basically work a little bit with the Heritage Centre in restoring. We can't restore everything because obviously people's lifestyles change, but we do think that there is more opportunity for windbreak down there as well. So probably, I'll come back to these, probably adding some trees down there to basically create some natural shelter as well.
Traditionally, that area has always had windbreaks in the tamarisks. I think a few years ago there was a protest about the council were going to take tamarisk away, and they're years and years old, spectacular. Gorgeous along the seafront there, and they are an excellent windbreak, and they can withstand those north winds and the salt water.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, there's so few things that will actually do well in an area like that. And we're talking about two very distinctive, different areas. The south side is, as it says, hot. You can get away with murder over there, you know. In the south
Don't
side,
advocate murder.
we've got to be very careful about what we put in. We don't want to waste stuff
No, so we've
by
got
putting the wrong thing.
so
The scouts, when they put that cherry tree on there,
right,
didn't have a hope in
crazy.
hell.
So we've got a lady called Catherine Froggatt involved in the project, and she is actually a garden designer and has trained, etc. So she's actually giving us advice on planting for down there, and she's already made some suggestions on what can go there. And then obviously from Dr. Don Crouch, she knows the heritage plants that have survived down there, so we'll be able to bring elements of those. So my thing that I found really interesting was rosemary. So rosemary plants were always traditionally there. And so rosemary should be put back in again, and it's really hardy. It's really great for the touch, and it smells lovely. So we'll have a lot of that involvement into it to make it work.
whatever we do, don't let anyone take any more tamarisk out. Because there did actually used to be a load of tamarisk by the sea shelter there as well, and it just disappeared.
But the idea of doing this project and to get the buy-in and the support and get people involved is that as a town and as a community, and I really believe in our community, is that we protect what we create. And so it stops people coming in and basically going, oh, do you know what, we'll take that away. Because as a community we can go, well no, we built that, that's ours, we're looking after it, we're not asking you to do anything, that's ours. So by doing that, community spirit will protect ourselves.
Kent County Council have been very good lately for pruning our trees and putting in new trees. You know, we've had 3 new trees over at Warren Drive. They've just pruned the one outside the chip shop, which is a beautiful creature. You got that done? When I saw the tag go on it, I thought, no, they're going to take it down, but they actually pruned it. and it's made such a difference. It's going to be beautiful this year.
So we'll jump on quickly. Lymington Road, Denise Packer. So everybody talks to me about this invisible divide in the town. This side of the train station and that side of the train station. And I believe in one town, there is no divide. But Lymington Road is a space to be enjoyed by everybody. And it doesn't have that stay and enjoy me feel to it. So it needs some work to it. So myself and Denise planted some bulbs up there at the end of last year for this year. But there's natural shelter that we can create within that green. So the houses at the very end are very open, so they get no shelter from the noise of the wind, so it lends itself to having some trees. There's gaps at the front where there should be trees, where there can be trees, etc. But we need to make that environment more user-friendly, so benches, picnic areas, etc. So Lymington Road is earmarked to come up with some ideas. Again, nothing is set in stone for that area because it needs more involvement for the people that use it, because the school uses it as a recreational ground, there's people that use it as a cut-through, so it has to be basically looked at as what we can do with the space.
Have you thought about putting a permanent Christmas tree up there? Yes. Every time they put one up there, it just looks terrible.
So the idea that Jill and I have got, and we're researching at the moment, is to plant 3 Christmas trees in the town that won't be big enough for the first 3 years, but will effectively be permanent, and from year 4 will be our Christmas tree for the town. So it'll save us money in the long run, but also it's good for the environment, because recycling Christmas trees is a complete nightmare, and most of them end up in landfill.
You have actually already got some really nice cedar trees on Sea Road already, mature ones. If you could find one that's near a lamppost and just put some lights on it, that's one done. You know, and there's nothing wrong with just putting lights in normal trees. It doesn't have to be a dead, you know, a dead beautiful tree. It can be any tree with a few lights in it.
Then the sensory garden is one that I think we all nowadays think is really important. I mean, 31% of our town is over the age of 65. Today in the town council office we met a man whose wife has Huntington's, and there's very little things that they can do together. And so more and more you find people really struggle to either have space for gardening or to go somewhere they can enjoy. And there's a study recently that's shown that people with dementia, one of the things that they don't forget how to do is things like gardening. So the idea is up by the community centres to create a sensory garden. So a space that is set for disabled people, but also has high visual coloured flowers, high sensory plants, but also raised beds where people can go and potter. So Councillor Hannah Scott came up with the idea. There's a big trend at the moment where you set up vegetable gardens, and if you can't afford, you go and pick, and then when you have money, you replant. So ideas like that can all be incorporated into the sensory garden around about the community centre. The heritage gardens, I'm very passionate about these because I'm very passionate about anything that is our heritage in the town. So Ethelbert Square and Adrian Square were effectively the tourist gardens in Westgate-on-Sea, and they've really gone to rack and ruin. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get funding and be able to work with Dr. Don Crouch and restore those gardens to what they were in the 1800s. So the idea would be that these would be places for people to sit and dwell in the summertime, but also they would be great tourist attractions because people would be able to come and actually see them and get the feel of them. And if we can do those in conjunction with doing the canopies, then we have a real great tourist draw for the town. But the heritage gardens will probably take the longest piece of work because it will effectively mean almost taking things back and rebuilding again, but trying to reuse the plants that are there. Canterbury Road, just quickly, Canterbury Road is being resurfaced in April, May. We want to take the central reservations as part of that resurfacing, take all the green out and plant poppies down there. So we've already had donations of 550,000 poppy seeds. So we're just going to keep going, and the vision is that as you come into Canterbury Road, you just have this sea of poppies leading you into Westgate-on-Sea. And And then, finishing off quickly, there's a page about individuals, which Peter will cover. I wanted to touch on donations so far, so it's always interesting going to council meetings and the council sitting there going, so we want money for this and we need more money for this, etc. So I like trying to do things for nothing. So I wanted to highlight what we've had donated so far. So from the community volunteers group in Oval Energy, they've already donated to us 300 trees and 100 hedgerows and bushes, which arrived with Jill on the 29th of March. And then from the Woodland Trust in November, we've got 315 mixed trees coming. And then our bulb planting that me and Denise did in the town planters and Lamington Road, we planted 1,250 bulbs in the town, and they were all donated from B&Q, Homebase and Thompson Morgan. So when we ask people for stuff, they will either say no or they'll give something. And so there is always ways of getting things, and the trees and everything have all been completely donated and cost us nothing. So we've applied for some funding from some charities. We've also applied for some community funding from people like WH Smith and from Greg's, etc. So we'll keep applying for different fundings, etc. because we're very much of the opinion that it's not about costing residents money to make things beautiful. It's about finding alternative ways to do it. And hence the volunteering.
And making the best of what we've already got.
Exactly.
Because we have actually got a lot already to work with. We need to protect it and look after it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad you agree with me on that point.
I agree with you everything, Denise.
I would have argued vehemently if you had.
I just don't pick up the phone to you. So if there's no questions on the presentation, I'm going to hand over to Peter, who's been waiting patiently. And Peter can tell us more about South and South Eastern Bloom and answer any other questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everybody, and thanks for inviting myself and Anne here this evening. I'm the chair of South and South Eastern Bloom. Anne is the campaign manager who looks after our 350 plus entries each year. Just a little bit of a brief history. Most of you probably will have heard of Britain in Bloom. That started in 1964. It's been going for quite some time, and it actually started in the UK as a result of our xenophobia and our love of the French, because they started one before we did. So yeah, a senior horticulturist was in France on their holidays. They saw the magnificent work they were doing sort of post-war to improve villages and towns to increase tourism, and so it came back over here, and that's how it started. We, as South and South East in Bloom, are one of 16 regions of Britain in Bloom, but we are not, just to make it clear, we are not the RHS. Yes, we are not part of the RHS. We're not funded, supported or managed by the RHS. We're a totally independent charity and a limited company, yes, organising all of the events right the way across our region, which runs from pretty much here, tip of Kent, yes, right the way across to Shaftesbury in Dorset and all the way down to Swanage. So we're 6 counties, including the Isle of Wight, who organise the annual campaigns and competitions. The whole idea of Bloom is very much a question of trying to encourage, as I think you're doing, colleagues, is to encourage local people, yes, to get involved in gardening, in horticulture and conservation. And because of the issues arising out of the financial crisis in 2008, instead of local authorities leading the way, as they always did and always have done, it's pretty much now encouraging the community to play their part in maintaining their town or their village, yes, as they would wish it to be. So it's really about improving the quality of life. It's about improving health and well-being, because clearly gardening is an exceedingly healthy pastime and is very good for us all. It also is very helpful for people returning from illness, yes, volunteering, getting involved. It has issues such as social cohesion for those who are alone or those who've lost a partner, yes, and are feeling, yes, disenfranchised for whatever reason. It's very good. We're also involved in London in Bloom, so people who are homeless and all those sort of issues are out of work. It has enormous benefits. So that's pretty much who we are. The competition, because the campaign is to try and literally get more and more people involved in volunteering, gardening, conservation, etc. But the competition itself, there are two elements, one of which is competitive and one of which is non-competitive. Yes, surprise, surprise, people are exceedingly competitive. People will cut your arm off to get a gold award in the Bloom, I can assure you.
That's starting to sound like a film already.
Yeah, that's right, yes, yes.
Film coming on.
Yeah, I'll get the chainsaw out. But the issue, it isn't about gongs at all. In real terms, it's no point in getting involved in the Bloom unless it's something you want to do for your own community and benefit your own community. To a small degree, we're sort of that little bit of icing on the cake, which sort of says, yes, you've done all these things, we've visited, we recognise what you've done, and we are giving you a validation on the basis of that. And then we give you feedback and support, and the support isn't turning up every 5 minutes. There's only 2 or 3 of us, yes, who run the whole campaign. So it's about encouraging people to get involved. We have entries for everything from villages up to large cities, yes, including things like coastal resorts, etc., which do particularly well. Obviously, we've got one a little bit further from here. Deal, for example, has done remarkably well in recent times, starting from almost nowhere. So in the space of, what, 5 or 6 years, something like that, and yeah, they've literally gone from 0 to hero, which has been superb. And they've also been to Brittany Bloom in the national finals as well. So anything is possible, guys. It's about the 3 pillars. It's about gardening, it's about environmental responsibility, and it's about community participation. Now, up until last year, 2018, when we would come along and visit, we would mark, we would score and report on what we have seen and what we've heard, and it was based on 50% of the marks for horticulture and gardening, 25% for environment, 25% for community. That has changed. That has changed this year, so it's now 40% gardening and horticulture and 30% for environment and community, because
30,
it's
did you say?
30, yeah,
30.
yeah, 40, 30, 30. Yeah, so it really is starting to recognise that while horticulture, gardening and conservation is very important, and it may be the reason why we do things, but it's the community that is almost every bit as important, if not more so, in true terms. And so is maintaining and caring for our environment. So it's not just the obvious things about litter picking and things like that, but it's about conserving our landscapes, our natural places and our natural trees and plants, etc., which is most important. This year we've moved from marking out of 200 points now down to 100, which means to say instead of judges having the leeway to mark 19 out of 20, it's now whatever it is out of 10, which makes judges focus a little bit more seriously. So we have those, as I say, that works. That's the competitive side, on which as a potential new entry, that's really good to get involved. But sometimes a new entry, and if you're starting, if I'm bold enough to say it, like the old statement, if I was starting now, I wouldn't start from here. Yes, I'd start somewhere else. The big problem about getting involved into the competitive part of the campaign and competition early is if you don't achieve what you think you might achieve, people become disheartened. And they say, well, what's the point? We only got a bronze award, why bother? What's the benefit of getting involved in the Bloom? And it fades away, and then once that fades away, yes, the focus from the community tends to lose its way. So we have this secondary area, which is non-competitive, which is called It's Your Neighbourhood. And it's a Royal Horticultural Society's campaign, not a South and South East in Bloom campaign, but we manage it and administer it on behalf of the Royal Horticultural Society. Now this, thinking about your potential projects in here, of which I think there's 7 major projects, although they probably could even be subdivided into more than that, don't you? Yes, thinking about 2 memorial sites instead of the one obvious one. This gives you an opportunity to register for It's Your Neighbourhood. There's no fee, there's no cost, which I think fits in quite nicely with your ethos. which is really good. So whether you've done anything or not, so even if you sat here and said, yes, we're going to do something and haven't done any more, you get a certificate. Yeah? Yeah, that's right. Yes.
We can't
So your edited part of me is enter everything, lots of certificates.
No, because you're absolutely right. Because the one good thing about that it's assessed, it's not judged. It's assessed at 5 levels. So level 1 is we're just starting out. Yes, we've formed a little group of volunteers, but we actually haven't started. We're just working on the plan. So that's sort of level 1. And that goes up to level 5, which is...
Are we still talking about the RHS It's Your Name
We are.
scheme?
We are.
Okay.
So that goes up to level 5. And so therefore what that is, over a period of potentially 5 years, possibly even less, you can see the progress that's being made. Assessors will give you feedback on the process, yes, and they will give you advice on the next step. So you've got somebody holding your hand technically over a period of time. Having said that, Anne knows only we do have some who come in for the first time and go straight to 5. Yeah, they're that good. We have some that have been at level 1 or 2 for several years because they haven't got the numbers of people, they haven't got the funding, and they're doing as much as they possibly can, which is fantastic.
What I like about this idea is that we do have a strong sense of community. Sometimes we just need to give it a kickstart and basically make people realise that they have a sense of community.
Agreed.
So being able to do something and get the recognition that actually you've started it will actually gain more and more people, and by entering every single, get a certificate for every single one,
Yep.
and everybody in this room being able to hold a certificate,
Yep.
in 5 years' time, the room should be filled with a lot of people that are very motivated by
I think
what
that's
we're
perfectly true. The huge advantage it has being non-competitive is the fact that nobody is disappointed. You don't enter, receive nothing, and then think, all that effort and we got nothing for it. This is a way of everybody involved, that the project receiving an award for what it does, for that to be recognised at an awards ceremony. Yes, so it will be coming up on the stage. Yes. Which is always the fun part, when you see people come to the stage never having received a certificate ever before. It's just like a lot of children giggling. It's fantastic.
I'm just imagining them having
Oh,
arms of like
it's
10
just-
certificates.
We've had a few of those. But
I'm not competitive.
But so that works extremely well. So and the reality life is, say you can register every single project. Yeah. In the first year, if you have not really made any major progress, we don't even visit. Yeah, we give you time to develop. We usually like to visit in the second year, unless of course you've got something really amazing happening in the first year, in which case you could go to level 2 or 3 in the first year. It's, if one project is further advanced, maybe the railway station, maybe a clear one that could go forward quite early and quite quickly. So that works extremely well. It means, let's say you could technically put in as many of those as you wish. The only stipulation, and there is it has to be worked on by local people. Yes, so you don't want to bring somebody from several towns away. Yeah, it's about local people. So that's most important. It's about hands-on. It's not about committees directing other people to do the work. It's about rolling the sleeves up, getting involved with the planting, with the clearances, all those other things. So those are the two major criteria. And there is a third which we've introduced this year. Each project has to be unique. So we're not about joining 2 or 3 projects together to make one project. Yes. So in this case, we would visit on a particular day. We'd arrange with you to visit probably all 7. Yes, on the same day. Yes. And then you'd receive an award for every single one. And they might not all be at level 1. If you feel that some are a bit more advanced, or you've moved forward a little bit, and you've gone beyond the we're thinking about it stage, we could actually visit. Yes, and we could award that appropriately. So, very simply, we have a number of others. We have paid for. Yes, as you might know, we're a small charity. Yes, we don't do this for free. For the pure simple reason we wouldn't exist. We raise all of our money through entry fees and very kind people who've given us some money to help us along the way. We're fairly fortunate at the moment that we have Gatwick Airport at our back, yes, helping to keep us afloat, which is very, very useful. But we do have, if you ever get involved, so perhaps I'll take one sec. By getting 5, 6 or 7 projects going, it then gives you the opportunity, perhaps in year 2, to put all those together to make a town entry. Yes? So you're starting to build capacity, probably, you know, finding more volunteers. Once you get started on a project, I'm sure other people will come along and say, oh, can we get involved? You know, what are you doing? You know, so you can start to grow it, and then 2 or 3 years down the line, or 2 years, you could enter as a town in the competitive arena. Yes, which means to say you're potentially, at some point, in a position to be considered to go to the Britain in Bloom finals, of which we only nominate 5 from the region each year, and not in the same category. So one town, one city, one coastal resort, whatever. So it's quite, and there's only about 70, I think this year there's about 74 national finalists. So out of the entire UK, which is Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, the Channel Islands, yes, and the England regions, there's only 74 finalists. So once you're selected, you're only one of 5 out of the entire region, out of 6 counties. So it's something to aim for along the line. Bloom is a tremendous tool. Yeah, it's one of many. It's not the only tool by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a tool that gives you a focus, because you know that there will be a visit from an assessor or a judge on a given date, somewhere between the middle of June and the middle of July. So it's something to work towards. Yes. Whereas if it becomes fairly casual, with no real targets ahead of you, it will be quite a long job.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of this. You have a target, but at the same time, it's not critical in the way that it's going, oh, this is all rubbish, this is crap. It's basically, it's somebody coming along and going, okay, you've done a really good job so far. For next year, try and focus on this.
Yes,
this,
which is what we would do. We try very hard. Obviously, we're quite limited. I mean, we've got 350 plus entries. You can't write, a 10-page report for every single one. The difference between the competitive villages and towns and the non-competitive It's Your Neighbour, you will get advice as we're going round. Yes, because we're not really giving anything away. There's no point. The It's Your Neighbour is visit is fairly low key. It's relatively friendly and warm, and it's about helping and advising. Whereas when we get in and put our little competitive hats on as judges, we're looking for everything that's not right. So I think it probably would be wrong to come in as a town in the first instance. Because I think lots of people will be disappointed. I'm not being rude, but it's more than likely that it wouldn't get much more than perhaps a bronze.
No, but I think as you say, doing the It's Your Neighbourhood and doing the individual projects and then combining those for year 2 and then continually to add to them year after year after year, it effectively then encompasses the whole of the town, because we also want people to also take pride in their balconies, their gardens, and things as well. And we put it in the presentation that all that gets added into the town competition. But I think, like you say, it probably is quite demoralising if you enter for the first time and people come along and go, no. But if you're able to start with it and get the advice, I think
in terms of perhaps go ahead with the It's Your Neighbourhood in your projects, I think that's definitely a tremendous way to start. It will give everybody a fillip, knowing that they've actually received some recognition from probably the most important horticultural charity on the planet, with a history of over 200 years, so it knows what it's talking about, although I have to work with them, so I wouldn't agree with that at all. But no, it's absolutely superb, and it starts to grow a little bit like Topsy, because once a project is started somewhere and people hear that there's been a certificate, people will possibly come to you and say, well, we'd like to start a project over here. Could we do that? And the answer, of course, is yes. So that would work very, very, very well. So That's fairly straightforward. Do I need to add? Have I missed a huge amount, boss?
My email, give them the dates and things.
Yeah, and you should have had, hopefully speaking, you should have had, and we've sent all the marking sheets and entry forms and all the rest of it. So if you can think about that. As to going a stage further and not just the projects, if you haven't already thought of, and I suspect you probably have, why not start a best front garden competition? Why not start best hanging basket competition? The best vegetable plot, if you've got you will have allotments or so you could start to get people involved. Best balcony, anything, the best pub, best restaurant, with a floral or a horticultural element to it. Best conservation area. If someone's trying to sow a little wildflower meadow down, a mini meadow, then that would be great. One thing I will pick up, Councillor, I get very worried about people putting too much faith in things, and I think you're going to start.
That's a sin.
Yes.
Lots of faith.
Yes,
Too much faith.
Too much faith. And one of the too much faiths you've got is in poppies. Poppies will flower for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
There isn't any way of extending it whatsoever.
No.
And if the wind blows, they're going to be confetti. So you need to think about wildflower mixtures that have some longevity. And could I urge you to think about when you're sowing down meadows for them not just to be annual meadows, because you're going to be sowing them again the following year and the year after that and the year after that.
Perennials is what we're talking.
Cheap
and everlasting.
Oh, I don't know about cheap. We don't know.
Self-seeding.
Yeah, what you can, if you, there's a number of companies. There's companies like, if you may have come across, there's a company called Pictorial Meadows, which produces hybrid annuals, which are not really native annuals. They're just pretty horticultural annuals, and they are amazing. They will huge amount of colour, probably for the best part of 3.5 months. But that's it. You've got to do it again the next year.
Blue cornflowers, because that's the French equivalent to the poppy.
Yeah, that cornflowers. Well, there are a number. It's Cynosaurus. There is a number of perennial cornflowers that you need to think about. Some wildflowers will self-seed, so corn cockles and corn marigolds and those sort of things. But if you could think about a mixture where you've got maybe, let's go mad, let's say 60% annuals but 40% perennials, then the following year, you won't get much out of the perennials in the first year, but the following year, they will start to really establish, and then you may only have to oversow a limited amount of annuals just to keep things ticking along. And most of the sowing rates are 3 grams per square metre. I mean, with minute amounts of seed.
I think there are companies that will make you up a bespoke mix
There are.
to the conditions that you're actually going to put them in.
Yep.
So it's no good just chucking seeds down expecting miracles.
No,
that
wood
way.
pigeons would be very thankful for that.
Do you have that information on your website?
I've got a list on the website, but the company you need to think about going to is a company called Land Life. They're based in Liverpool. They grow all of the British native wildflowers, harvest them themselves. It's nothing coming in from elsewhere. It's all local provenance, and it's well worth looking at. And they have huge amounts of seed mixtures suitable for a whole range of situations. I mean, you're a bit more maritime, obviously, so you could get the sort of onshore winds which are just about to sear everything off, especially if it's a harsh winter. So you need to think about hardy material if you possibly can. But do have a look. And if you get stuck, Jill, email us, and we'll respond, or I'll respond and say, look, why don't you try this?
Thank you.
We're a resource.
Thank you.
There's a lot of things we can't do and we'd like to do, but certainly we can give you as much advice as possible.
Thank you.
Just to add into your question about information, one of the things that we are trying to organise is some classes. So Catherine, who we mentioned before, we've talked to her about running some different classes on the different types of planting, upkeep of gardens, everything from basic to professional. And we want to run that in conjunction with what else we're doing, because I think the educational element is really important.
Oh, it is important, without doubt. Look, on that particular note, yes, if you're interested, we can't do it for free, but unfortunately, we have been in Canterbury today organising our Kent seminar. And we have a seminar at, where are we going? Westgate Hall in Canterbury, and it's on the 3rd of April. So as I say, Anne will send out agendas and information, I think, fairly shortly. So, you know, if anybody wants to come along, you'll meet other, if I may use the term, bloomers. Pardon? Oh, I quite like that version.
We refer to them as family, everybody gets together and talk.
Yeah, so there's an awful lot of networking, or how do you, but despite the fact people are quite competitive, let's accept that as a fact, they will share. Yeah, well, why don't you come along and see what we're doing? Yeah, so that's really quite powerful. So if you fancy coming along with that, we'll be talking about how to put an entry together, what to look for, and we will also be doing a mock judging, where you yourselves will actually get involved in the judging process, so you can see how it works. There will be judges there as well, so hopefully speaking, you'll be able to pick up some hints and tips of what they're looking for as you go along, which you might find quite helpful.
That's very good.
Anyway, that's probably about me.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
Yeah, so I'm going to throw it open to the floor for either questions or just feedback in general, what you think about what you've heard tonight, how you feel about what we're trying to achieve, or just any questions in general from anyone.
I would say congratulations, because I think it's a fantastic initiative. I really do.
Have we not? Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it's great. And I think the problem is that a lot of people are time poor.
Yeah.
And it's juggling lives with commitments. You know, you can say you're going to be there next week, but actually suddenly can't make it. But I think it's a great initiative.
Thank you.
And is it being kind of advertised quite well locally?
So
do you already have lots of volunteers?
So we had a big list of people that were meant to come tonight that were volunteers, but for various different reasons. So there's been a lot of social media. What me and Joe planned was that we wanted to do this first meeting, get feedback, and the idea is then to do an official launch with the press.
Okay. I personally don't do social media for
How did you hear about this?
Fortunately, we are friends.
How did you hear about it?
Social media. But I think there are an awful lot of people here who don't do social media. And apparently, I think you said that
Come along.
it was meant to be
They're not on
there
social
was
media.
signs, but I didn't see any signs in the town at all.
I didn't either. And there's a huge thing here about the railway station, which is fantastic. But I haven't seen anything about this at the railway station.
So we agreed at the town council in December that we would have a councillor responsible for PR and marketing, which, hello. So my vision is, because the town is an older generation and a lot of people are reliant on things in hand, so I'm going to try and make sure that everything is in every different medium. So whether it be posters, whether it be things in the newspaper, social media, and word of mouth. One thing that I will say between Jasmine and Jill, anybody that comes into the office to ask a question on anything gets invited to some initiative, and so we will publicise a lot more, Matt.
Yeah, just following on from that, I mean, one of the key things I do try and push is the social media side, which I do appreciate not everyone's on. But the biggest and powerful tool is, at the end of the day, you can throw all the adverts in the world, you can put all the press, but the most powerful is the word of mouth. And I mean, as you can see here, I mean, Gio and Councillor McCalliff went to the effort of making these things additional, which by all means take home and share to friends and family, because as it, I mean, when it's down to being time conscious as well, the more people there, everyone then can muck in, so it's not going to be 2 hours for someone's work. You get another 3 more people, it becomes half hour, and then you can take on from where someone else has left off, and that's what it's all about. That's what
It's amazing how quickly you can do things. So me and Denise did Lavington Road with the bulbs in under an hour. I did all of the planters in the town centre in under an hour with the bulbs. So it's amazing that you can do things quite quickly. But what we want to get better in is communicating. One of the things I always talk about in Westgate is Westgate self-communicates. So my favourite thing when I moved to Westgate was I told something to somebody in the bakery, and by the time I got to the co-op, that person knew. And so it is about sharing that information, and we will do that a lot better. So I'll come to you, Denise. We said that what we wanted to do is to get everybody's feedback on the initiative as a whole. We're going to do an official launch, which is probably going to be the very cheesy spade in the ground for the first dig, which will be planting the first tree. And then on the back of that, keep rolling on the things that we're doing. So when we can officially talk about what's happening with the train station, that will be a second wave. And then my vision is that with Westgate and Bloom, there will be something out into the media every 2 weeks. And so it will just gain momentum from that.
What do you like for media partners? Do you have a local paper?
Yes, so we've got 3 local papers.
I can remember my days in local authority. The press were not always my best friend. But it seems to me that if, for example, if you're going to, say, run an in-house little competition, maybe you could get one of the newspapers to sponsor it. And therefore there would be regular stories going in, meeting Mr. and Mrs. Jones at number 37 with this, and a nice picture of that. That will get the word out right the way across. And as also, just remind me, we have a number of our competitive little towns and villages where they actually all wear a polo shirt, yes, with the logo on and with "I'm supporting Bloom" across the back. And wherever they are, people talk to them, and they spread the word. They wear them when they come to the award ceremonies. There is this corporate look about the volunteers working for their town. You need to find a partner
as well.
Absolutely, you need to find have advertised here, but you've got to use every trick in the book to try and get the word out. Social media is great, but those of us at a certain age find that a little bit more difficult to deal with. Yes.
Going back to what we were originally talking about, communicating amongst ourselves.
Yeah.
Social media is all very well for those that use it, but Camborne Avenue, I'm always talking about it, Jill, am I not?
Yes.
We've been promised a bench for 3 years now. Last year we were promised lights to the tune of £4,000, wasn't it?
Sorry.
Yeah, before your time, Jill, but I can
Very wise,
assure you,
Jill. Very wise.
I can assure you it's in the minutes.
Yes.
All right?
Yeah.
4K's worth of Christmas decorations didn't happen. A bench didn't happen. 3 years now we've been waiting for a bench. We had one before. I would suggest 2 benches at an angle with a flower trough between them and a notice board, because I actually put one of your posters up in the chip shop at the top of Camborne Avenue. I know you don't like to distinguish between different areas of the town, sir, but the last time you came up to Camborne Avenue, you need to come up and see that place. It's got a different flavour altogether. You're going to, and believe me, I'll be marching you around where you're walking.
We are going to be having more community notice boards in the town. There's community notice boards getting added to the train station as well. Which is
And what about Camborne Avenue? Because everyone up there, we've got a bus service that only runs 9 to 5. It needs, if it warrants a bus service, it's too far for people to walk.
That's a separate conversation.
I'm just saying how out of the way we are. And I'm saying that all this attention happens along Station Road and St Mildred's Road and Sea Road. But listen, that's Lymington Road. I'm talking about
But-
Campbell
Yeah, but
Avenue.
we need to start. We need to start in an area and grow out, and it's impossible to do
But you're
everything
talking
in
about
one
communicating with a few have you any figures about population of Lymington and Linksfield?
Not to
Because
hand, no.
it is teeming with, people.
Yeah, I understand that, but you've got to remember, Denise, we can only start in a spot and go out.
You've got
and if
7
we
projects
and
there.
if we basically go, we're only going to do a bit here, a bit here, a bit here.
But the point
there
I was
will be no
making
results.
was a notice board
Yeah.
to enable you to communicate
Yeah.
with us.
Can
That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, can I be very rude, folks? Yes, yeah, we've got 70, 80 miles to go, and if you're going to discuss local politics, I want to be out of here. So if you actually have any questions about Bloom or anything I've said, please, I'm happy to answer that. But if you're going to have a debate about who did it, then I'm sorry, I'm not interested. So, yeah. Yes.
Is there any thought on native plants, encouraging native plants? I'd started with native plants, and I found they stay greener longer. They're hardy. They may be very small little flowers, but they are very encouraging with regard.
We have
to
an enormous number of species which are British natives and UK natives. I have to say the majority of those reside in your lawn, which is a fact of life, is because most of them are grassland species, yes, without the solitary out. So most of us at King Gardens spend most of our life trying to remove them, which is quite wrong in many respects. But thinking about things like, the park, etc. I mean, there's a very simple way of dealing with things. Yeah, at the moment, you probably cut the grass within an inch of its life, yes, with gang mowers or ride-on mowers, and you have to ask yourself, why do you do that? Yeah. If you actually relaxed a boundary, not straight, but curved and interesting, and just allow the grass to grow, yes, and only cut it once per year, then there will be a lot of natural species emerging in there, and there'll be some very dominant grasses.
This is the farmers, isn't it? Farmers encouraged to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Headlands and things like that, isn't it?
They're encouraged not to plough right up to the edge.
Absolutely. And the fact of life is, by doing so, it's costing the council money to do that, and you have to ask yourself why. And when I ask people why they do that, you'll get the classic answer, well, we always have.
Yeah, I know.
Which is,
it's always done that way.
We've always done that. We don't want to change it. Have a look at everything you do.
That is happening in Blackheath. You know Blackheath?
I do, very well.
Brenny.
Very well.
Sections are just left.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we see natural poppies that we didn't see before. We see
Very true.
plants
Very
and
true.
so on coming up.
Sometimes you only have to disturb the soil slightly. Yes, just put a heavy sort of rake through it. And once sometimes, particularly with poppies, they would have been sitting in the ground maybe for 30 or 40 years without germinating. And up they will come if you get the conditions right. The biggest problem is grass. Dominant grass species. You will probably know there's a plant called yellow rattle. Anybody know yellow rattle? Yellow rattle is a parasitic plant, and it parasitises grass.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's a British native wildflower. There's a greater rattle and a lesser rattle, and a children's rattle. But it can be. Sorry. Yeah, she's used to it. So those could be bought as plugs, yes, rather than seed, because it will fail. Yeah, and if they're planted in little groups over a period of time, it will control the coarse grasses and encourage, the frailer wildflowers to come through. But that sort of information we can always share with you.
Have you ever worked with the British Side Society?
No.
Because we had an area in Lidsfield Road confirmed as a town green.
Okay,
About it was before the town council was formed, and there was an inquiry down at the Swan. That area was given its status as town green because of the wildlife that was there. We had the woodland butterflies, we had bats, we had I don't know what's there at the moment, but what's happened is nothing. and I think it would benefit from a cut per year, like hay at the end of the year. It's difficult to get any machinery in there. There's not really a large enough entrance to get in there. But I've suggested many times that we could contact the British Scything Society.
Good
and
idea.
Maybe have an event along there, a community event, where we could learn to scythe. I know it sounds a bit dangerous, but they're going to be useful. Well, in 21st century, Britain, even a paper cut is dangerous. You know,
that's true. Yeah. Need a risk assessment.
I would suggest that the British Scythe Society could possibly show us the way ahead there, and they probably do it all over the country.
Bringing back some of those
skills. I've been on their website, they do exist.
I mean, it'd make a fabulous volunteer's day.
Scythes, the trouble is when people scythe, it's because it's the wrong technique and they don't have the blade sharp.
Yeah, I've got 2 scythes, and I'm quite happy to lend you one on Friday.
I was going to say I'm not coming on Friday.
You wear your work boots.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you have to be. The trouble is, scythes to work with them properly, they used to be cranked according to your own physique. Yes, because there's a temptation to dig them in the ground. But the modern metal scythes are really, really good. And
I should imagine they carry a set that are sharp and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of organisations that do it.
I think it'd be a marvellous
But
thing
there's
to
groups who do things like hedge laying, and there's all kinds of people who would be very happy to volunteer. It will make a fabulous sort of countryside of event and get people involved.
That fits in with the heritage side of the town.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
does.
I think the town is very heritage orientated.
Yeah.
And I think you should play to that.
Yeah.
And that's what will.
I think someone else said that we could combine it with like a harvest festival type thing.
Yeah.
A few barrels of beer, maybe from the
Can
oh, there you want to come to Westgate.
Yeah, you said my favourite word. Yes. Yeah.
But our little ale house down here, he serves all the finest cask ales.
Yeah.
I think
How much would it cost for to buy a few barrels of ale, sell them at the event, raffle tickets?
It's not the idea. It's not the idea. It seems to me that you have in this you've laid out your aspirations without quite clearly. It really is, unless you two have already done that. But it's now to look at each one and say, right, what do we need to do here? What can we do now? What will be next year or the year after? And then perhaps bring some people together who say, well, I live in that area, I'm quite happy to come along. Yeah, a community is just more than one.
Yes.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
So 2 or 3 people is a great start.
Yes.
And then start each project as you go forward. The difficulty we all have is we get quite excited about things and we come up with 1,000,001 ideas of what to do, when in actual fact we probably only need 6 things that we can come up with and then do them rather than 1,000 and not. It just seems to be you've got the sort of caucuses here now of actually a group and an idea. Move forward on that.
At the moment, it's kind of being driven by where we raise the funds.
Yeah.
So the charities that are giving us the funds the quickest is the work that we can do the soonest. Because everything costs money.
No, it does.
Grow Wild, for example, even though it's just seeds, the minimum cost of growing a room this size in Grow Wild is £2,000.
Oh yeah.
So you're reliant on those charity donations and people donating plants, etc.
To sow an area the size of this room, yes, at 3 grams per square metre, 10 quid. You just need to be able. You can't sow it into existing grassland because there's too much competition. The best way to do it is to invert the grass. Yeah, spade, turn it upside down.
Yeah.
And then basically what you've got is the poor soil facing up. And wildflower seeds need poor soil, they don't need nice soil. And it just seems, if you can get a group of people together and get 10 quid worth of seed, even if it's from the local, the local garden centre, or even better, get them to donate some seed.
Or get them from the wild.
Yeah.
Our indigenous.
Or you have to be,
if
have
they're
to be
doing well
careful
where
with
they are now, you
that.
can collect them where they are.
You have to be really careful with that. Yeah, there are legal requirements, I can assure you. Yeah.
So what Mother Nature gives us free, it's illegal to.
In many cases, it depends on the species. It depends on the piece of land
Because
they're
it's a
on.
guarantee that it's going to be happy where if you're getting a seed from it in the wild there, that's where it's going to be happy.
It will be happy where it is. It doesn't mean to say it will be happy growing somewhere else. Local provenance, yes.
We're not talking about
So-
English bluebells or, you know,
I don't mind, nothing wrong
rare
with English
species
bluebells.
of bee
Lovely.
orchids and stuff. We're talking,
Yeah.
you know, raggedy old seeds. We had some lovely
Sorry,
chamomile
as a
last
senior-
year.
I was just going
We
to
had
say,
some-
As a senior horticulturist, I don't think I can accept raggedy old seeds, quite frankly.
we had beautiful chamomile growing up the side of a bin at the beginning of last
Yeah.
year, and KCC did a very good job of holding fire on
No,
the putty,
it's
didn't they?
just-
The whole town was going bananas about
Give me a
it.
list and where-
But we've had some beautiful wild things popping up all over the
It's
place.
a great start.
Thank you very
It
much.
really is a superstar, honestly. If everybody can buy in,
Exactly.
it can
I
only-
think
only
the
go
ladies
one
over
direction.
there hit on the head. I mean, the beacon event was amazing.
Yeah,
And
lovely
there
idea.
was, that was not a lot of people involved in that, but there was about 400 people turned out for that. And if you could get the same amount of people doing this project,
Here, here.
you would easily
Yeah.
be up to a reasonable standard.
Yeah. Well,
It is.
Yeah,
I think a
it's
lot of
not-
the success with
it's not a
Beacon
10-year
was having
project.
the brownies
It's not.
and the scouts there. So perhaps
Yeah,
get the brownies
that's a
and the
point.
scouts involved, that'll bring the parents.
Yes.
No, that's a really good idea.
Community groups.
Yeah,
Yes.
we have little groups of beavers, yes, who are, and it's your neighbourhood. The local children have got a little raised bed in Crawley where they grow vegetables which they share with the community,
Yes.
and they're what, 7 or 8, and they're and they have actually had a national certificate of distinction as an IYN. They're just wonderful.
And
And
St
each new
Saviour's
generation of
School,
kids come
St
in.
Saviour's School's already got a beautiful
Yeah.
wildlife garden.
Yeah.
For 3 or 4 years now they've had that.
Well, if you came in as a town, that's the sort of
Are
thing
you?
you guys are going to see. Anyway,
That's already done, isn't it? That's
Appreciate
no, no problem at all,
Thank you.
no problem.
So I'm going to let Peter go. He has to about to say he's London.
Find my way back to London.
No, we've got
Right,
snow.
We've got snow at home.
So much for your time.
Yeah,
Very
no
much
problem. So it's good to see you all, and I hope we'll catch up with each other a little bit later as we get going. Yeah. Don't forget that we can always pop down at another time to sort of hold your hand and take you through.
Fantastic. I think the application.
Something like that. I'm just going to put that in there. Thanks everybody. And,
Are those magazines to be
Uh,
handed out to us?
yeah, there's,
something to do that.
this is called, this is grassroots. As each project, each IYN will get these regularly. Yes, and it just,
IYN, what does that stand for?
it's your neighbourhood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of planting a hedge. There's all kinds of things in here about.
Fantastic.
Yeah, quite useful. And yeah, they're also online. You're also, once you're registered, you'll sort of be able to pick up things online on the RHS website, our website,
Yeah,
etc.
we'll get the applications to you next week.
Yeah, when you're ready. When you're ready. You've got to the 28th of
Loads of
February.
time.
Yes,
Loads of
absolutely. But if we haven't had one by then, we'll be round to your house.
I'm sending to Joe's.
Yeah, take care. Bless you. See us off the premises.
Yeah, it's
Lovely to see you.